Thank you so much, Sustainable Brands, for inviting me here. And Mr. Kalin, I'm so sorry. This is actually my first time in Bangkok. I just landed 50 minutes ago. But one thing I did pick up, though, was the smiles. So forgive me, that's what I've had so far. For some of the more attentive people, yes, that kind of look a little bit like me. That's the cover of my book. I'm an ex-advertising guy, a man on a mission, a man with a purpose. And my purpose is really to transform brands into a force for good and transform advertising into what I call goodvertising. And for me, at the center of that, there is purpose. But it's not really easy to get purpose right. So in the next 15 minutes, I'll try to give you some questions that you can ask yourselves to get it right. Because quite honestly, to me, purpose seems like Pokemon. Everybody is searching for it, but nobody really knows why. So hopefully we can clarify that a little bit today. And we can start with a bit of a story. And in any story, you have a villain, an enemy, somebody whom you need to fight against. And then in this story, it's called the two-headed purpose monster. And to illustrate that, I'm going to show you, I'm going to take you to the moon, and actually one of my favorite Danish TV programs. So this is the moon, 1983 in Denmark. I'm just going to show you a short little clip. No sound on that? Good, that didn't make a lot of sense, did it? It didn't really make a lot of sense to me when I was a kid, even not an adult. It's not really Danish. And the thing is, when you talk with a two-headed monster, it doesn't really make much sense. And that is essentially the problem, because if we look at it, on the one side here, we have the bull, this strong, powerful animal. Some might recognize it, it's outside the New York Stock Exchange, illustrating profit, strong animal. But over here, we have this little weak lamb that talks about doing good. So we're stuck in this dilemma, and it's really difficult to run a company and run a brand like that. And what Bellator illustrated like Homer Simpson, we probably quite often stand in that little dilemma with the little angel on the one shoulder saying, Thomas, you shouldn't be flying to Bangkok, you're killing the environment. The devil might say, the hot air stewardess on Thai Air, she looks pretty good, maybe you should go. So that's kind of the dilemma you're stuck in. So what I'm trying to advocate for is to put these things together. Because right now, we're operating with mission, vision, and purpose. So think about how you have built your structure. Do you have a mission, vision, and purpose, or do you have one single line? Because else, you'll end up kind of like this guy, not knowing what direction you're going to go in. Or like this car, profit, purpose, you're not going to move anywhere. So you need to get that right. So can every brand have a purpose? I don't know. I mean, can a bag of potato chips fight for world peace? So I think it's very important that we talk about these things honestly. And let's just do a little look into some of the purposes that are out there. And the first one you should ask yourself is really, is your purpose embedded in your brand's mission? A very, very good question. Because if it is, you take those three things and you have one single line you can move ahead. It's not a car that tries to drive in two directions. I don't know what we start here, but that's okay. So let's start out with the first little thing here. So this is an example from ExxonMobil. I'm sure quite a few of you know ExxonMobil. So this is their statement. They say ExxonMobil Corporation is committed to being the world's premium petroleum and petrochemical company. To that end, we must continuously achieve superior financial and operating results while adhering to the highest standards of business conduct. Quite a long sentence. I don't know how many of you can remember that one. Yeah? No? The problem with it is you have profit, purpose. And as some of you might have known with the little Exxon scandal unraveling, it seemed like maybe profit did win in this case. Let me show you another one. Saving people money so they can live better. That's what Walmart says. And I actually do really like this little purposeful sentence. You can act on it. You can actually remember it. So that's quite good. And it's also quite a bold, audacious goal. I don't know how many of you have been in a Walmart. Have any of you been in a Walmart? A few of you have. Good. Okay. So there's a whole category of customers called the Walmartians. They look something like this. So there's a lot to work on. There's a lot to work on for Walmart, but I've got to applaud them for trying. We've all seen Michelle Obama join the mission, so that's great. But do ask yourself this simple question. How many of your products and services are aligned with your purpose? So how many of Walmart's products and services are really aligned with that singular purpose of making their customers live better? Very, very important. So I'm going to take you through a lot of two-headed monsters today, and some of them you might recognize when you sit here in the room and feel, maybe I'm a little bit of a two-headed monster. But let's try this one here. It is our goal to synergistically initiate high standards in information in order to continue to assertively revolutionize timely technology for the highest standards. Anybody remember whose purpose this is? A mission statement? No? It's nobody's. I did it in the mission statement generator. So if you're out for buzzwords, that what you can do, save a lot of money on consultancy fees, just put whatever you like in there, it's done job. But if you're serious about it, beware of the two-headed purpose monsters. This one is a classic. So who's talking? Profit or purpose? The one head a little bit slightly smaller than the other head. It's kind of a classic. So, for example, Toyota, when they launched the Toyota Prius, they had the little head saying doing good and a big head saying let's sell some trucks. Quite a classic one. Or this one, you probably all know that from the stories of Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde, right? So do good in daylight and bad in darkness of the night. Some of you might kind of recognize that little two-headed purpose monster as well. So ask yourself this question, and this is quite a good question to all the branding professionals. Does your brand just leave a positive impression, or does it leave a positive impact? A very important question to ask yourself. This little ugly one, not a good one to look at. Those of you who remember the film Total Recall with Arnold Schwarzenegger might remember this little bad monster. So we all think that everything is going really, really great, and then suddenly we see this little monster. In latest case, probably Volkswagen. We all thought, I actually had so many Volkswagen cases in my book, and suddenly a different monster kind of showed its head. So beware of this little one. It's a tricky fellow. A two-headed monster can also be good. So Clark Kent, because the thing is, way too often I come across companies who have amazing stories to tell, who actually have done their sustainability groundwork really, really well, but they don't talk about it that much. And when they suddenly come out as Superman, people get a little bit confused about it. So make sure that it's a continuous journey. Don't stick your head out as trying to save the world. Make sure that it's a continuous journey. And a last thing I want to talk about when we talk about purpose. So these are two banks, HSBC, you probably very well know, Nordea is a Nordic bank. But if you look at it, those two mission statements are very, very alike. Fulfill the hopes and realize the ambitions. Fulfill your goals and dreams. As a branding guy, it quenches in me. You need to have a purpose that's differentiating, that you can build a differentiated brand on. So let me show you one good example from American Express. I don't know how many of you know the Small Business Saturday. Any of you have seen that campaign? Yeah, there's one down there. It's an amazing campaign. So what American Express did in the middle of the financial crisis was to encourage all Americans to go and shop in the local small businesses one day a year. An amazing and very successful campaign that was even endorsed by the president. I don't know how often you do marketing and sustainability campaigns that's being endorsed by a president. I haven't done one yet, I can tell you that. And it had an amazing impact. It created more than $5.5 billion in revenue in these small stores. and people discussed it. It was a single-minded, clear idea. These numbers are actually from 2012, so they're probably even better today. So ask yourself this simple question: is your purpose distinct and differentiating? Make sure your purpose is distinct and differentiating, okay? And I know it's tough, because most of the time, the problem about two-headed purpose monsters is that most of the time we're ourselves a two-headed purpose monster. I often talk about how marketing is from Mars and sustainability is from Venus. So we're constantly stuck in this little thing, and purpose needs to begin within ourselves. It needs to be anchored within ourselves, and that's not very easy. It's not very easy to create a purposeful business. If you think about it, one place I love to start is also always with the resume. So I get a lot of resumes at the agency. So, you know, people write these things in a resume to procure a challenging position that will effectively utilize my skills and further the objectives of the company. That's a real one from a real resume. Doesn't sound that purposeful to me. And quite honestly, I think it's about time we're honest. Most of us probably just go to work like this fellow, talk about sports, and just do enough to keep from getting fired. Probably 90% of us, right? No? So it's difficult to get purpose right. And if you look at it, I see quite a big change happening right now. Starbucks, for me, was, when I started in advertising, probably one of the most purposeful companies out there, I must say. I really applaud the journey they have been on. So this is Howard Schultz on the front cover of Time magazine, because he's done amazing stuff for America. Things like the vets, education. But the thing also is, if we scrutinize them really, and these days they are being scrutinized, they have one issue. At the moment, they pay as much tax as a sausage stall in Austria. In UK, they paid the same tax as a blue-collar worker. How much good are they then really doing? But the most interesting thing is not so much just this, but a new type of business that's emerging. That's really, really interesting. But yeah, just a monster question before that again. Can you measure your impact? And I mean, really. So in the Starbucks example, remember to pay your tax. But anyway, I want to talk about this new amazing business model. So this is Wheelies, and it was started by a Swedish woman called Marie de la Croix. She applied for a job in Starbucks, but didn't get it. She got blue hair. They didn't like that. So she started her own business of coffee bikes. But she sold these coffee bikes, so she empowered young people with a passion for coffee and a passion to start their own business. So everybody could start their own business. And they expanded quite dramatically. And if you look at the mission statement, it's quite challenging to all the big brands here in the room. And the model is quite interesting. Starting a Starbucks takes up $500,000 in start capital. To begin a little bike, $5,000. And I think it's important we talk about this, because these days probably one of the biggest issues we're facing when we talk about sustainability is also the social inequality. And I think this and these types of models really nail it. You have young people who can go to work, who are passionate and who can run their own business. Wheelies have in 2 years expanded into 44 countries, so quite an interesting business model. Good, but let's talk about monsters. And we all know the only way to kind of get monsters out from underneath the bed is daylight. So I think it's important that we are, the next couple of hours here today, talk honestly about these two-headed purpose monsters, because else we won't get it right. And my best advice is probably this: to recognize bullshit, nose is better than ear. And I have quite a big nose, so I know what I'm talking about. So thank you so much for listening to the two-headed purpose monster, and do reach out if you have any questions. I'll be around the whole day. Thank you.